Hello. Well, in this little video, I'm going to talk to you about how to sew up your knitting or seam your knitting. So the first thing to think about, from my opinion, is that we are not sewing like we would sew up cloth. We're actually seaming. And I think that's best done from the right side of your knitting. So you notice that I've got my two sides right side up. And it's best done with a blunt needle because we don't want to pierce the wool. We're going to be working instead in a method that's more akin to lacing up. So I've already started, as you can see. And I'm very deliberately using a different wool colour so that you can see how invisible and effective this method is. Now this particular piece that I'm seaming, the knitting direction is actually this way, which is quite unusual. Normally when you're seaming, the knitting direction sits more like that way, side by side. However, this is trickier, but gives you a really clear example of how it works around the other way. And if I get the opportunity to record seaming that way, I'll show you that as well. Right, so we're on the right side, blunt needle. The other thing is I try not to knot the tail, just leave it floating. Now we're going to mirror side to side, so lacing up. So blunt needle goes in and comes through and picks up the stitch. You see that? And through we go. And I don't pull it tight. To the other side, under the two bars of my knitting and back, under the two bars, back, under the two bars and back, and we travel like this. If you were working on something like 4-ply where it's a bit finer, you could actually grab a couple of stitches each side in one go, but this is on bigger needles, so I'm just going to stick to the one stitch repeat. So you'll notice that it's lacing up quite nicely, and you can stop for a check. Hold the bottom or hand on the knitting and then just pull that through. Beep, 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 beep. Magic. Look at that. Pretty cool. Now it helps you stay on track too because you're mirroring the left and the right side. That's a hard word to get out today for some reason. So if you're lining up, pattern increases, decreases, stitch details and things like that, it will help you line up as you go. The one last thing, tip to remember is that when we pull this yarn through, it's almost making a completely straight line. So if you're wondering how much wool you need to seam up an edge, it's the length of the edge that you're seaming and then enough, a little bit more on the ends to tie off and hide. So that's a good way to measure it and think about it. Right, that's how we seam. Any questions, go ahead and ask.